Development Summit. For 25 years, WSDS has stood as India's premier platform for shaping global discourse on sustainability and climate action, bringing together leaders, thinkers, and change makers from across the world. My name is Apurva Singh. I'm a research associate at the Energy and Resources Institute, and it is my privilege today to serve as your MC for this session. The urgency for transformative action has never been clearer. The first global stocktake shows that global emissions must fall by 43% by 2030 to stay within the temperature goals. Meanwhile, only 35% of SDG targets are on track, with many slowing and some reversing. Incremental change is no longer sufficient. The interconnected challenges of climate, development, equity, and resilience demand systemic shift, long-term vision, and leadership that can deliver transformation at scale. Before we proceed with the session, I want to take a moment to share something very powerful. This year, in partnership with Cool the Globe, we can all take real climate action right here, right now. Please download the Cool the Globe app, join the WSDS community, and complete simple, sustainable tasks during the summit. The top 10 participants on the leaderboard will be recognized as our most sustainable delegates. Together, let us truly walk the talk. For this particular session, we have a fantastic line of speakers. The leadership panel on accelerating clean energy solutions will explore how collaborative action among national, state, and city governments, along with the private sector, can accelerate energy solutions. The session will highlight pathways for multi-level governance, policy innovation, technologies, and investment to power a just and inclusive energy future. It is my pleasure to introduce the chair and moderator for this session, Ms. Priya Shankar, India Director, Climate and Environment Program, Bloomberg Philanthropies. Can you please have a huge round of applause for Ms. Priya Shankar? Our speakers for the session include Ms. Luisa Salgueiro, Mayor, Municipality of Matosinhos, Portugal. Ambassador Ann Walter, former Secretary General of the International Energy Forum and former Chairman, International Energy Agency. Can you please have a huge round of applause for all our panelists? Ms. Ita Kettleborough, Director, Energy Transitions Commission. Mr. Sharad Pungalia, Country Head, Gentry, India. Mr. Himal Tiwari, Chief Human Resource Officer, Tata Power. Dr. Anjali Acharya, Managing Director, The Nature Conservancy, India. We will also be joined by Ms. Namita Prasad, Joint Secretary, MOEFCC, a little later at around 12:30 in the afternoon. With that, I may now invite Ms. Shankar to take the session forward. Thank you.
Hello. On behalf of Bloomberg Philanthropies, I'd like to congratulate Terry on this 25th anniversary edition of the World Sustainable Development Summit, and to welcome you all to this session on accelerating clean energy solutions. We have a great panel of speakers here with us, with representatives from government, private sector, and civil society, which really demonstrates the approach that is needed to drive clean energy development, which requires action from all actors and collaboration across them. We know that clean energy is needed for sustainable development, to improve people's lives, to drive growth, and to address climate change. We also know that it can bring access to the over 700 million people that don't have access to electricity today. And it can generate lots of jobs. Today, there's 16 million people employed in clean energy, and this is poised to grow. We also know that the world has made really rapid progress. Last year saw the biggest ever record additions in renewable energy. However, this still isn't quite fast enough to meet the global goal of tripling renewable energy. According to IRENA, this almost needs to double in order to meet those goals. So that's why I think it's so important for us to be talking about how we accelerate this based on the progress that has been made, but how we sort of unlock the next level, the next frontier. And here, India has had such incredible progress, both in terms of growing renewable energy, but also in terms of driving down renewable energy costs and making it the cheapest and most cost-effective mechanism of energy. Solar in India has grown sort of over 29 times in the last 10 years, which is incredible. And there's lots of lessons from the Indian experience that can be helpful as the rest of the world thinks about how we accelerate. And with that, I'd like to invite Ambassador Arne Walter, who has a lot of international experience previously at the International Energy Agency and the International Energy Forum, to share with us his perspective before we dive into the discussions.
Thank you, Priya. Let me first, ladies and gentlemen, echo the praise that has been given to Terry by all the previous speakers. I have attended most of the WSDSs from the very start, a quarter of a century ago, and it has been a privileged journey to see the summit grow, both in scope and importance. Today, it's on the map as a must-attend event in the Global South for sustainable development, where myriad Indian and international stakeholders review progress, but also the lack of progress, giving feedback and new input to decision makers. And this appropriately at a time when India is leading the way, setting ambitious renewable energy targets, expanding solar and wind capacity, showing leadership in the International Solar Alliance, developing green hydrogen, and relying on both green renewables and fossil fuels for energy security and economic development. More good news is the many achievements around the world to promote clean energy solutions. Solar and wind have grown rapidly. Strides are being made for energy storage. Grids are expanding for reliability of clean power systems. Renewable energy is becoming more affordable and widely deployed, contributing to a growing 1/3 of global electricity generation. Increasing public awareness and willingness to meet global challenges is encouraging. Optimism is high. All this is good news. The bad news, however, is that we are doing far from enough. We are not, as we should be, on track to meet agreed global targets and our SDGs, despite all the advances, despite all the good intentions. Outside this conference hall, globally, we are facing strong political and economic headwinds. Disruptive geopolitics and geoeconomics are ushering global affairs into a new normal. Multilateralism is challenged by great power's sense of entitlement and by my country first protectionism. Economic and political relations are being weaponized by tariffs and sanctions. Political and business support for climate action is taking a hit. Add to that a rather toxic cocktail of policy uncertainties, vested interests in current fossil energy systems, and supply chain restraints for critical minerals needed to accelerate clean energy solutions. We do not know how long the gloomy new normal will last, and we don't know what comes after it. Global energy demand continues to grow amid climate concern. We need all the energy we can get to fuel economic and social development, both green renewables and cleaner fossil fuels, used more efficiently, made more accessible and affordable, with a special eye to lifting energy-deprived people out of energy poverty. The energy sector accounts for nearly 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Fossil fuels are set to remain the mainstay of the global energy mix for decades to come. But the transition away from them is crucial for reducing carbon emissions, for safeguarding the health of the planet. Governments face an energy trilemma, having to deliver energy security, energy affordability, and energy sustainability. But when the push of political economy and geopolitics comes to shove, in addressing these interconnected challenges, governments will prioritize energy security at times at odds with the other two. Increasing global energy demand heightens the urgency of accelerating clean energy solutions, the topic of this session. And this across sectors at global, national, subnational, and local community level. Without jeopardizing energy security, and without jeopardizing economic growth, without jeopardizing, and with all this without social disruption. National governments set policies. They can provide incentives and stable regulatory framework conditions that attract investment and encourage innovation. Subnational governance in states, cities, and communities are the feet on the ground, local reality, core to energy delivery. They too can drive policies. So top-down guidance and support from the national center is important, but so too is bottom-up local say on development priorities to ensure broad public support over time. It is important that national and subnational governance are aligned, sharing objectives, resources, and responsibilities. They are two sides of a cooperative coin. Policy coherence across all governance levels increases predictability. Policy ambiguity produces confusion, risks, and conflict. Private sector and business have an important role to play for investments, technology, operational expertise, and innovation. But energy transitions cannot be left to market forces alone. Public-private energy partnerships at national, subnational, and global level can accelerate clean energy solutions. The global energy transition has to be just among countries to be sustainable. Differing national circumstances have to be taken into account in a world where countries are endowed differently in terms of resources, technology, and money. So too, the energy transition should be just within countries, taking into account differing internal resources and circumstances. And there are no one-size-fits-all solutions. Global investments in clean energy need to more than triple by 2030 to achieve our net zero targets. Integrating renewable energy at scale in the global energy mix is urgent. Mobilizing international finance is crucial. Technological innovation, energy storage, smart grids, green hydrogen, and overcoming high upfront costs are some of the call of the hour buzzwords. For both energy security and transition to greener energy, we need more international dialogue and cooperation across economic and political dividing lines. All major economies, including the major emitters, have to be constructively on board for global efforts to succeed. And the Global North must heed the call by the Global South for increased technological and economic assistance, that for the common global good. The future will come by itself. The sustainable one will not. It is wonderful that governments set ambitious goals. Achieving these goals in multilateral cooperation would be even more wonderful. Ambition must be translated into action. It is a must for an impatient global society to speak up for a just and sustainable global energy transition, pushing both governments and business to accelerate green energy solutions. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to conclude with is a proper thing to do as we celebrate the silver jubilee of the WSDS. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Walther. Some kind of important themes there on the importance of international institutions and multilateralism and cooperation. And building on that global international perspective, I want to turn to Ita Kettleborough. I know the Energy Transitions Commission has been following how the energy transition is going globally. How do you see the clean energy opportunity, and what's the role that India can play there?
Thank you so much, Priya. It's a great question, and it's one that we spend a lot of our time on at the Energy Transitions Commission. I think the Ambassador has already given a brilliant synthesis of where we stand on the energy transition, and it is always one of, a tale of two sides. The quick reality check: we are far off track for managing global warming. We breached the 1.5 degree temperature limit for the first time last year. The IEA estimates that if we just implement what we've agreed today, which has been very hard fought across all of the pushes to get the commitments we've even seen to this at this point, we would still be around 2.5 degrees of warming. And global climate change commitments are well off track, as you said, and even where these have been made, key countries such as the US are now backing out. So there is a lot of bad news for us to be thinking about, but there are some very important good news. For us at the ETC, one of the crucial pieces that we think needs to be echoed again and again is that we have the technologies we need to deliver this energy transition and keep global warming well below 2 degrees in line with Paris. So while climate ambition may falter, we're increasingly convinced that the economics of clean energy, and in particular of clean power, will not falter. And we really do believe this is also economically doable. We estimate at a global level that this requires investing around 1 to 2% of global GDP per year from now until mid-century, which is actually far less than we're already spending on the costs of climate damage. So what do we actually need to do to drive emissions down? I mean, I think we probably all know this, but it's worth repeating. What really matters here is electrification and a rapid build out of clean power. Electrification is what we call the beating heart of the energy transition. To put it simply, it's cleaner and it's more efficient. So this is electric two-wheelers instead of petrol two-wheelers. It's solar and batteries instead of diesel gensets. And that's really where India's opportunity comes into focus for us. So India has incredibly strong renewable resources. And there's a fact I like to use to illustrate this. And it's based on recent auction results from just last year in India and in the UK where I live. So the recent Indian auctions for solar was 60% cheaper than the UK auctions, where the dominant renewable technology is offshore wind. And crucially, the Indian auctions were for round-the-clock power, not just power when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing. And they were in nominal terms, nominal real values. So over the time, that cost advantage will erode as the UK prices increase with inflation and the Indian prices do not. That is an incredible cost advantage to leverage. And India is already leveraging that. And there's just 3 areas I wanted to talk about briefly. On electric mobility, India is already a global 2- and 3-wheeler leader. And what's really exciting there is that it's a consumer-led transition. It's driven by economics. It's actually now cheaper in many cases both to own and operate an electric 2- to 3-wheeler versus a fossil. On clean power, India is not only growing its solar and wind resources, but it's also this innovation on system design. So this round-the-clock renewable auction is incredibly exciting. and is actually really different to what we've seen developing in other regions of the world. And also, of course, it's worth mentioning the International Solar Alliance, because really what India is doing there in kind of making solar into a shared development strategy of countries across the world is really exciting. The final piece that I'll just touch on, which is really for us at the ETC, one of the big frontiers for India, is the energy agriculture nexus. India's already been innovating around solar pumps to cut diesel use, lowering costs for farmers, obviously improving resilience. But agri-PV for us is one of the real new next steps, and we talked about that really extensively over the last few days. And I actually got to go and visit some agri-PV yesterday, which was very exciting. The key point here is that the work that we've been doing with Terry shows that both from a top-down screening of land availability, but also a bottom-up assessment of pilot data, makes us very exciting that this can help overcome some of the land barriers of solar. The pilots show stable and high, and in some cases higher yields for some crops, and around 30% water savings, and allow us to believe, with quite a lot of work, and this is the real point here, that work has to be state by state and local. It's quite difficult to do at a national level. Land ownership is a fiercely local issue. And it also has to be done in a way that works for farmers. But if that could be accessed, that land could theoretically generate around 20,000 terawatt hours a year, which is far in excess of what India is likely to need. So it makes us believe that land constraints might not be an issue. So for us, that is one of the crucial areas for India to lean into going forward.
Thank you so much. And really kind of encouraging to hear that you think that, renewable energy and the potential there is now strong enough to really supply power needs. And also that narrative on the sort of importance of the local and subnational action. At Bloomberg Philanthropies, we do a lot of work with cities. We support and work and partner with over 700 cities internationally. And our founder, Mike Bloomberg, former mayor of New York City and UN Special Envoy on Climate Ambition and Solutions, is a big believer in the power of cities. So I'm delighted that we have Mayor Luísa Salgueiro, the mayor of Matosinhos in Portugal, here with us. And Mayor Luísa, it's incredible that your city has committed to being carbon neutral by 2030. Congratulations. How are your efforts going, and what role is clean energy playing as part of that strategy?
Well, thank you. Dear Excellencies, distinguished moderator Priya Shankar, esteemed leaders and colleagues. First of all, it's a true honor for me to be here with you at the World Sustainable Development Summit on the occasion of its Silver Jubilee. When we gather here in a room like this, we are not simply exchanging ideas. We are shaping direction, we are defining responsibility, we are deciding pace, and today pace is everything. Let me talk to you about Matosinhos. As Priya said, I'm from Portugal. We are a city coastal in Porto metropolitan area in the north of Portugal, and our city has committed to becoming carbon neutral by 2030, only 4 years missing to that goal. That is not for us only a symbolic declaration. It is a political choice. Because, as you might know, European Union has set 2050 as the target year to climate neutrality. And Portugal, my government, our national government, has chosen to go further, committing nationally to 2045. But we decided to move even faster, 2030, so anticipating 20 years comparing to the European rule. And it is why multi-level ambition, that is so important, and it looks like you have 2050, 2045, and 2030. Each level raising the bar. Each level refusing to wait, but let me be clear. Clean energy for us is not only about carbon, it is about resilience. Last year, Portugal experienced a nationwide blackout. In a matter of minutes, millions were without electricity. Whole country was without electricity. Communications failed, systems stopped, uncertainty spread, and in Matosinhos, we activated our municipal emergency plan immediately. We secured generators, we protected hospitals, we safeguarded water supplies, we relied on radio communications when digital systems collapsed. It was a powerful reminder. Energy is not only an environmental issue, it is a security issue. It is a social stability issue. It is a governance issue. And more recently, precisely 1 month ago, severe storms damaged hundreds of kilometers of power lines across the country, leaving hundreds of thousands of people without electricity. Again, resilience was tested. And again, we learned. Centralized systems alone are not enough. That is why Matosinhos integrates clean energy with resilience strategy. Our city is recognized by the United Nations as a resilience hub. We also are part of Making Cities Resilient 230, a global commitment to disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation. For us, solar rooftops are not just decarbonization tools. They are continuity tools. Energy communities are not just sustainability projects. They are social protection mechanisms. Microgrids are not only technical experiments. They are resilience infrastructure. And as you might know, I don't know if you understand, in Portugal, we don't have a regional level. We only have the national government and then the local communities. We have 308 municipalities. I'm also president of General Association of the National Portuguese Municipalities. And this means that cities carry more responsibility. We are not observers of national policy. We are implementers. We translate European ambition into streets, schools, housing, and infrastructure. And our strategy rests on 4 pillars. First, distributed renewable generation, solar on public buildings, progressively on critical infrastructure, digital permitting to accelerated deployment. Second, energy communities, producing locally, sharing locally and globally, and reducing energy poverty. Third, municipal capacity, technical teams, data systems, solar maps, emissions inventories, and transparent governance. And fourth, alignment. National plans must include cities. Financing must be predictable. Data must be interoperable. And dialogue must be permanent. Multi-level governance is not a theory. It is the architecture of delivery. And we cannot do it alone. The private sector is essential. Cities are anchor clients when public procurement is strategic, when contracts are long-term, when risk is shared, clean energy scales. But scale without justice is failure. The transition must protect vulnerable households, it must stabilize energy costs, and it must reduce inequality. Speed matters, but fairness defines legitimacy. Excellencies, European Union says 2050, Portugal says 2045, Matosinhos says 2030, but dates alone do not change the reality. Governance does, investment does, local implementation does. Resilience and decarbonization are not parallel tracks. They are the same road. And cities, empowered, financed, and recognized, are the engines that moves us forward. If we place cities at the center, if we align national ambition with local action, if we combine clean energy with resilience and justice, then neutrality is not a distant aspiration. It becomes a deliverable commitment. And that, I believe, is the responsible of leadership. And that's the reason why we all stand here together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Louisa, for that really kind of inspiring remarks, but also for your incredible leadership in terms of what the city is doing and how it's seeking to move so much more quickly ahead in terms of the power that that cities and local governments and state governments can have in terms of accelerating implementation. And on the similar sort of topic of the role that subnational governments can play, but from a slightly different perspective, I'd like to turn to Dr. Anjali Acharya, the Managing Director of the Nature Conservancy in India, to talk to us about some of the work that you're doing with state governments, but also how subnational leadership can be demonstrated in responsible renewable energy development.
Great, thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here on this esteemed panel. After hearing the mayor's words, it really underscores what I was about to start to say, which is where that subnational entities, whether they're cities or states, is where the clean energy transition actually happens. Leadership at this level is essential for not only fast, but also fair and future ready. And the mayor also mentioned these points about fast, future and ready. But let's situate that back to India. India's clean energy ambition is unprecedented. We are targeting 500 gigawatts of fossil fuel, non-fossil fuel capacity by 2030, which means it's adding 50 gigawatt every year, and most of it coming from solar and wind. That's an amazing ambition. But it also means we are a country of 1.4 billion, and you had spoken about land constraints. Land is no longer a secondary issue. Land is now a defining issue. And I would not say it a constraint, and I'll tell you why. And maybe after this panel, we should definitely talk. So the first thing, states can lead by institutionalizing renewable energy siting and development. Siting and development. This is important because we need to find ways to be able to identify land parcels that have low impact, but also to make sure we use science-based geospatial tools and approaches. So the Nature Conservancy has a global tool called SiteRight, and we are working already in 9 states with an ambition of expanding to 19 states. This is a smart siting tool. It identifies ways of bringing in layers of land, looking at different uses of the land, looking where agriculture is on, for example, for agri-PV, and being able to identify which are the areas that states can actually work in, which are those areas. This becomes really important because this SiteRight tool and other such decision support tools really integrate a social value index. And this is important because, as we all know in this room, that any conservation or climate intervention or activity or initiative in India must touch down on people. It has to involve communities. So this social value index really incorporates factors like common lands, rain-fed agriculture, people, where they are, what they're using the lands for, etc. So this is my first point, which is how states and cities can institutionalize RE siting. My second point is really about looking at the land assets that are there in the country and looking at opportunities for underutilized land assets. At the Nature Conservancy in India, we've done that. And one of the areas has been reclaimed mine lands, in particular coal mining. These are abandoned coal mines. Why? Because these represent areas for renewable energy siting, which are also low conflict, at the same time encourage economic revitalization. We have an initiative called Mining the Sun, And it really identifies those closed mining areas to see if those can be potential for siting of solar infrastructure. How is this a win-win-win? Because from the Ministry of Coal's perspective, these are abandoned coal mines. From the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy perspective, these are potential sites for solar infrastructure. And from the community perspective, we're working with local communities to help reskill them to be able to enable that transition to enable a just transition to these alternative forms of energy. And we already have success. We are working in the state of Tamil Nadu with a public sector undertaking, and we have just completed out, after doing the entire geotechnical studies, baseline studies, etc., identified an area for a 50 megawatt solar project on a reclaimed coal mine. And just some weeks ago, they launched the actual solar field. The last thing I want to end off with is that subnational leadership is really about setting that development alternative. And we're hearing this at many different sessions about how climate and both mitigation and adaptation should be part of the smart development. It's not a separate track. It's not something, it is really about smart development. And so states that start to, in India, for example, states that start to prioritize not just an economic venture or a siting of an infrastructure, but the people, the biodiversity, the productive uses of land is really the way that they can help to define the next generation of climate leadership. India is being seen by other developing countries. It has become increasingly the voice of the global south. And I think by taking that step forward at the subnational level, these states can set a benchmark for the development of sustainable, people-centric energy transitions. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing and bringing in the perspective of how important it is to engage people and communities across these developments. And we've also heard previously that the private sector has a really critical role to play here in terms of driving development, driving innovation, and there have been lots of successes in terms of growth. I'd now like to turn to Mr. Himal Tiwari from Tata Power to ask you, based on all this growth and progress that we've seen, but to really get to the next frontier in terms of clean energy, what is it that you see that needs to be unlocked to drive that?
Yeah, thank you for your very profound question. And firstly, very happy to represent Tata Power on this panel, very esteemed panel, very deep perspectives and learnings around the globe. As we see today from a Tata Power lens, look, we are an integrated company in the entire value chain. The lingo is the entire value chain or the energy stack: generation, T&D, renewables, rooftop solar, EV charging, and then we have energy as a service. We are seeing this, we are now calling ourselves not an energy producer, but an energy transition platform owner. Now, I think that is a very important lens to take, is the transition is happening on 3 Ds: decarbonization, decentralization, and digitization. Now, all the 3 Ds operate absolutely at the national level, if I take the lens of the opening question, at the subnational level. Now, if you talk about the transition to be as it is going on, absolutely, I think the country has done well. I think the policy has in many times led, but there's, of course, many things to be done. A key element that I wanted to highlight here is, he talked about perhaps some elements that are seemingly bottlenecks. If you see the value chain to be today, the last leg is distribution. Now you see upstream generation, transmission, distribution is where the real value is getting created. Now, in many ways, if you don't address this, even if you see distributed energy, even rooftop solar, EV charging, if you don't have a healthy utility, it will not work. Statistics are, and I think this is a couple of months back, first time, good news, the direction is good. First time all the utilities put together made a profit of 2,700 crores. Now, it's a drop in the ocean, but all that statistics is led by private sector companies. Because private companies are bringing in technology, they are bringing in discipline of operations, they are looking at customer centricity. But a more important element that I wanted to mention is that, look, all the state utilities all put together, there is a sum of about 7 lakh crores, they are in debt. And that is a big hole that we need to address. It's a systemic issue. We need to address it because all that, what is there is part of our efforts to do it. The last mile has to, work through. Now, in many ways, look, companies like us, we have demonstrated that example in the state of Odisha. The state of Odisha, we had acquired 4 distribution companies. In less than 5 years, all of the companies are now profitable. A high index on customer service, AT&C losses less, operational availability, all the SAFE metrics on distribution reforms are all almost on good standards. Some of them are global standards. Now, the point that I'm trying to make is that, look, all these distribute is at, as the electricity as it is a concurrent subject, all that has to be at both levels. So it takes 2 to tangos. Of course, the central pieces of reform, but the state reforms are also important. So in many ways, I think that is the lens that we take. I like the way that it has been, Anjali mentioned, is that energy as it is a clear metric. And again, I see this playing up because we are distributing power and we are present across the country. It is absolutely a great proxy for prosperity. If there is uninterrupted, cheap power, you can see that there is the index of economic activity, prosperity is there. We run microgrids in some states. In villages where we have microgrids, in less than 3 years, we are seeing good trends. Of course, micro enterprises are coming, etc., but there is reverse migrations happening. So if you see the values getting created at a decentral level, a lot of that has to go into last mile. So I think what I end is, it's a systemic issue. The reform at the value chain, if you take the value chain lens or you take the implementation lens, the last mile is very important.
Thank you for that in terms of highlighting just the whole connected nature of the power system and how one needs to be thinking about that as a whole, and the importance of being able to work on and connect different aspects. And one of the things, I know you spoke about some of the distribution challenges, and one of the aspects that's being discussed in terms of also helping address some of those challenges is the importance of energy storage. And with that, I'd like to turn to Mr. Sharad Pungalia from Gantari, India, to talk about some of the work that you're doing on energy storage and round-the-clock power, which we've been hearing before is key and is happening now. How important do you think storage is, and how are you approaching that?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Priya. And it's indeed a privilege to be among this august panel. But what more, and before I take that question, I guess, see what more encouraging is to see this audience, the room full of people here. And it kinds of resonate the feeling that as community, as citizens, we all understand the importance of energy transition and this fear of climate change, which we all are today facing. And looking everyone here, I think it gives us a message that we all are in it together. We all are doing our pieces, like there are activists who are bringing in concepts. Private sector is trying to do what they can in terms of getting in capacities, renewable capacities. Now, to come to the question, yes, certainly energy storage is now integral part of our offerings. Okay, you mentioned about the RTC project. Just to share with the group, we are developing a 650 megawatt RTC solution for a green hydrogen facility. And this would have a mix of solar, wind, battery storage, and pump storage all together. And combining all these technologies, we plan to provide a 650 megawatt RTC solution for our green hydrogen project. So battery going forward, battery storage or pump storage or any form of storage becomes an integral part of offering for an RE developer. But why we are at this juncture today, we need to understand that over last 10 years, over last decade or so, what as an industry we have tried to do is we have tried to build in the confidence on renewable energy. We have tried to demonstrate that RE is reliable, it is scalable. We can deliver utility scale projects with the maturity of technology, the supply chain networks. We have proven when it comes to India, we have proven the prowess that number of 30 to 50 gigawatt is quite achievable as an industry, and we have been doing that. Also, one of the most important element which often doesn't get talked about, but what we have also demonstrated is on the dispatch and scheduling capabilities. The robustness of in that area has now made RE even more reliable. But I believe at this juncture now, when we are almost 50% in terms of installed capacity, more than 20, somewhere around 20 to 23% in terms of energy mix. Now is the time when we need to make this renewable energy dependable. And for making it dependable, storage is the option. Okay. And when we talk about making it dependable, we all have to also understand that electricity as such is an on-demand commodity, right? People will not light a fan or start an AC thinking if solar is available. They would want to press a button and they would want electricity. And if I have to provide renewable electricity to meet this on-demand nature, so I need to have storage element. But only storage will not be sufficient, because somewhere we all know that having entire storage is not possible, because storage also would bring in inefficiencies, right? If I have to store an electricity and then again use it back, in the process I end up losing like 20-25% of electricity, which goes into charging and discharging. So somewhere there has to be a solution which should involve load management, which should involve complementary renewable capacity, which today in India we are kind of blessed, because the generation profile of solar and wind is quite complementary in nature. When we see solar during the sun hours, but wind we see mostly coming in night, early morning. Monsoons we have more wind, while we have a dip in solar. So to a large extent there is a complementary nature between wind and solar. So as a generator, as an IPP, what we endeavor to do is, while yes we do storage is required, but first we try to configure the project in a manner where my dependency on storage is minimum, and then with that some element of load management, and together we try to make a solution which is energy friendly, which is dependable, and at the same time we are harnessing the local resources and optimizing them. So this is what I have.
Thank you, and really interesting to hear about how you're approaching this through a variety of different storage technologies, but also the importance of integrating across the power system. We're really delighted now to be joined by Ms. Namita Prasad, Joint Secretary from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. we've been talking a lot about the importance of national governments and state governments and other actors, private sector and international institutions collaborating around clean energy solutions. And it's been great to see at this WSDS the exhibition and activities around HimConnect, the work that's happening in the Himalayan region. And how are you at the Ministry of Environment from a sort of national government perspective approaching work with the Himalayan states to drive clean energy solutions, and what's the role of collaboration across this?
So thank you very much for that question. And I would like to talk about two things. First, of course, you talked about, Priya, about HimConnect. So in the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, we run a program called National Mission on Himalayan Studies, which basically funds research programs which can work across the Himalayas, which seeks to develop local solutions for the Himalayan problems, because the ecology and the environment of the Himalayas is very different, and the same technologies which are relevant for the field or for the other areas are not relevant for the Himalayas. So this project tries to fund activities which are particular to the Himalayas and evolve local solutions. And one of the most popular categories under which we give grants is the small energy and clean energy projects. And not just for generation of solar energy, but also how you can harness green energy in various aspects. Like it can be used for water purification, it can be used to drive local industry. So these kinds of activities and a new way of looking at things. It has to be an innovative project. So we have a lot of these. If you come to HimConnect, there are a lot of these micro green projects which seek to be standalone systems, but give a solution to and you don't need to connect to the grid. You don't need to be in in an area which has a very high electricity network to be able to run these operations. And more, I see the demand from the state governments, because they can also apply for these grants, to be able to fund such small standalone projects and then take up and upscale these projects. Because also, once you have a demonstrable project which works in the Himalayan region, which is based on green energy, you also need funds to be able to upscale it to a larger area so that the effects of it can be felt. So we have seen very encouraging results with that, and more states are adopting these, and more Himalayan communities are adopting green technology to be able to, green energy projects to be able to fund all the, or to power all the activities they want to take, and not just for the sake of drawing energy. Second thing I want to talk about is the CCTS rules. As you know, CCTS rules, we have the compliance market and we have the offset market. Compliance, of course, gives you carbon credits for reducing your carbon footprint to a particular level for which targets have been defined. But the offset market is where the magic lies, because it has methodologies and sectors which includes a lot of green technology and green energy projects, including CCUS, where you can actually register under the CCTS guidelines, and then you can earn carbon credits from that. So that could be a good way to monetize many of these small green energy projects. You don't have to be really a large producer, because then earning carbon credits out of green energy becomes remunerative in itself, because carbon credits can be a source of funding for you or source of money or expenditure for you. So we do hope that in the coming years, the offset market will pick up very fast, and we will have a lot of these green energy projects for carbon credit, and they will be able to monetize a part of their expenses, because they are still expensive to set up, and they would be able to generate the required energy, because India's energy demand is going to grow. We have not reached a stage where our energy demand is going to fall down. So we really have to utilize all kinds of sources to be able to meet the power demands that are going to come in the near future. And the green energy is going to play such an important role from it. And so it needs not only just policy incentives, but also it needs it should be remunerative in the end, because nobody is going to set up a power plant just for the sake of it. So I think carbon credits and The CCTS market gives a very good, the offset market will give a very good revenue, will give a very good opportunity for the players in this market to be able to set small green energy projects also. So before ending, I would like to invite all of you all to come and have a look at Him Connect. So we have these amazing technologies which have been developed for the Himalayan region, right from, burn bandages made from sericulture waste. We have, water filtration plants which use pine needles. So and an earthquake warning system, not an earthquake warning system, it is an early warning system for landslides triggered by cloud bursts. So it gives you a warning in 2 hours in advance. So we are developing many technologies like this, and I'm very happy to say that many of the power for this or the energy for this also comes from green energy. So they don't need to be plugged into the normal coal power kind of power plant to be able to run these energies. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much for highlighting the importance of some of the smaller scale, innovative, clean energy solutions that are emerging and the role that they can play. I'm going to come back to the panel for maybe a couple more questions, but before I do, I wanted to open it up to the audience and see if there are questions from the audience for the panel, maybe taking I see a few hands up. I think I might take 4 questions at a go and see how much time we have. The gentleman in the front and the lady at the back. I think there's a mic coming to you. Yes.
Madam, you rightly mentioned the carbon credit should be remunerated. Yes, the carbon credit to be remunerated, it's a source of revenue also. The awareness, demand need to be created. That is very important. And the GST on that is carbon trading is a 18% GST. This need to be understand very high. Who will buy it? And the pricing of that carbon credit is my second question. Now the solar power, it should be mandatory. Local bodies and the local bodies and the corporation levels, building bylaws, it should be mandatory. Some provisions in the buildings, there should be for the solar or for the renewable energy should be there. Thank you.
Yeah, the one in the front and one in the back. There are 2 in the back. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Chandra Vikash. I'm interim president for Earth Federation. This is a global alliance of organizations working towards fair and transparent democracy at the global level since 1955, when Article 109 was supposed to remove the veto powers. Why this is very important for accelerating clean energy transition is because we are seeing fragmentation. We are seeing lock-in of path dependencies into fossil fuel built up. We are not taking the final scorecard of how much we have weaned off from fossil fuels. Nobody is taking that accountability, not United Nations, not the sovereign nation states, not the large corporations. So the case very strongly in 2026 February, at the precipice of a global meta crisis, doomsday clock at 85 seconds to midnight, which effectively translates in a 1,000-kilometer journey to just 80 meters from a precipice on an overloaded truck hurtling downslope with weapons of mass destruction. So my humble submission is that could we seriously, for once, look at the unthinkable proposition of doing away with sovereign nation states locked in competitive rivalry, which is the biggest barrier to clean energy transition. Thank you.
There's one gentleman here at the front and 2 ladies at the back, and then I think I will come back to the panel.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Sonal Kakkar. I help decision makers in taking decisions through behavioral evidence. So I am a social researcher. So my question is for Mayor Luisa. Congratulations on being the resilient study. You talked about integration of alternative and clean energy into achieving resilience. How has your experience been with the participation and cooperation of people? Because I'm a behavioral researcher, so I want to know. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. That lady at the back and the gentleman at the front here.
Hello, I'm Rita Brara. I'm a senior fellow at the Institute of Economic Growth. So my question is really addressed to the whole panel. When we're visualizing accelerated clean energy solutions, we are not looking at the transition as it's happening on the ground. Because in India especially, there is a move from coal to LPG or natural gas, very important part of the transition before we come to solar energy. I think that step is especially important if we look at urban areas, because domestic gas, that is a major user of energy, uses LPG and it's natural gas. So when you're thinking of accelerating a clean energy transition, I think we have to think of a continuum, especially in the Indian context and cities. That's one. So if we're talking about people-centric transition, I think it's not enough to say people-centric, because as the mayor rightly pointed out, there are vulnerable communities. Now, when we look at vulnerable communities who need cleaner energy, you find that whether it's absolutely, we talk about presswalas, just people who iron clothes and are now using LPG cylinders. We're doing a project on that at Terry. Or if we think of minor enterprises that are using commercial LPG gas cylinders, where do we look at the role of natural gas in this transition to clean energy? Because it's not going to be solar or wind immediately, given the many problems with land. So I think the idea of a accelerating clean energy as a continuum needs to be considered very seriously, and differential pricing for big commercial units and for minor enterprises, roadside vendors who use natural gas, cleaner energy than coal, but not still using electricity.
And one final question from the gentleman here who's been waiting, and then we're going to come back to the panel. Perhaps you can just speak without a mic, I think. It seems like this. Thanks.
My research, I find out that there are a lot of energy waste lost during the, street lights, yards, even so I believe that we should have prepared the consultation paper that how we can use the sensor technologies and other automated energy distribution where it can be, we cannot lose the energy. Because if we identify the clean energy, make sure country like India, we lost few thousand crore in such kind of the, in a lighting actually, where we can really use the technology when save the thousands of crores. So this is my also give things.
Okay, thank you. I think quite a few different themes and provocative questions there. So maybe on the question of the sort of international nature of cooperation and the role of nation states, I might turn to you, Ambassador Ane Bolter, and on the question of the energy transition and the role that renewables can play, and availability and potential, I might turn to you, Ita. And then Mayor Salguero, the question for you around the behavioral aspects. And on the other questions, anyone who wants to jump in?
Question.
Yes,
Yeah.
perhaps to you? Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, great.
Should
So
I start?
maybe if Ambassador Bolter starts. And then,
Well,
It's on.
does it? No, it doesn't work. It works. Okay, fine. Well, the role of, or let's say, the pace of introducing renewables and reducing fossil fuels, it is decided very, very much by governments. And the governments have a difficult situation because most of the governmental leaders know what they have to do for a sustainable future. And at one conference I was at recently, a former prime minister said that, yeah, we all know what we should do. But if we do it, we do not get re-elected. And that is a perspective that we have to bear in mind, that most of our leaders have to be re-elected. In some countries, leaders that don't perform, they are assassinated or removed by a coup. But we have these democratic means. And it is a predicament for governments because they are asked to provide energy security, military security, food security, climate security, and what have you. And they cannot do everything at once. They have to prioritize. One thing that we haven't mentioned very much is that realizing that we need more and more energy, we should also look at our consumption patterns, our lifestyles. Do we really need that much more energy to live on, let's say, a basis that is equitable globally? And then we have an elephant in the room also, AI, which is coming more and more, increasing the need for energy, and very often competing with the needs of households and local communities and even business. So this is a very complicated issue. I don't think we can get there at once. A transition has to be gradual. It cannot be disruptive. That creates a lot of political problems. And there is a lot of good things going on at a smaller scale that can be scaled up. And these are low-hanging fruits. I think we should look increasingly at these low-hanging fruits and not focus too much on the best possible solutions that we hope for in the future. We don't want the best being the enemy of the good. And also, we should all, I think about energy efficiency, whether it is renewables, whether it is fossil fuels, and doing this in a way that is, let's say, globally acceptable. And that requires international cooperation and multilateralism. And in these days, these are things that are being challenged.
Thank you. I think, no, I'm afraid we're running out of time now. It'll be 50, the session will need to wrap up. So I think we're just gonna move on with the questions.
He says that it's complicated, I agree. But when does transition become procrastination? Even when the clock is striking so close to midnight, number one. Number two, we all agree what are all important. $2.7 trillion locked in military budgets and escalating, 50% escalation even in a peaceful country like India this year. Europe, which was demilitarized earlier, Japan, it's all remilitarizing. So the point is, let's accept that there is toothless multilateralism. United Nations, without Article 109 and Article 6, is defunct and paralyzed. Let's not ignore and undermine the future of younger people, children, which is getting cannibalized, and they're not going to keep quiet. Euthanasia is already legalized. We are looking at mass graves if we keep dilly-dallying on this matter. Thank you.
I'm going to pass on to you, Etta, to talk about the renewable energy conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think I'm mic'd up, so you should be able to hear me. Yes, I am. I missed that before. So I wanted, just coming back on this question of liquid natural gas and thinking about, do we need to be more nuanced in the transition and thinking about, for particular communities and potentially particular sectors or SMEs, do we need to have different solutions? I think, firstly, the point is incredibly well taken and fundamentally correct. There's other examples you can also point to, for instance, traditional cooking with traditional fuels, so wood burning in many regions, including in a number of regions in sub-Saharan Africa. There is a very, very strong, very urgent need to transition away from that from a health perspective for the predominantly women who are cooking with those fuels. And if a liquid gas solution is the cheapest locally, then clearly that would be the first step. So I think the core of the question is very well taken. What I would reflect on is we are in the middle of a truly breathtaking technological transformation. And one of the things we have to do is really look carefully at what the true costs are of the different options. On liquid natural gas and using that as a transition fuel, it's actually a really quite expensive way to access energy. You have to extract the gas, you then have to condense the gas, you then have to ship the gas, you have to then get it in tanks and get it to people. When you look at what's happened in solar over the last 20 years and what's happened crucially in batteries over the last roughly 10 years, we've seen such absolutely spectacular cost declines that far exceed what people such as myself were saying 15 years ago when we were talking about, we were just wrong in terms of what we thought would happen to the cost declines. That we're actually looking at a position where the combination of solar plus batteries may well win, even in some of these cases where we're looking locally, from a pure cost basis going forward. And if that's the case, then the question becomes, can we install that solar where it's needed, so in a distributed fashion, or can we install it and then get the wires to take it to people fast enough? And so it becomes, rather than a, the costs aren't in the money, it becomes an implementation chat. Can we pivot the system fast enough to allow solar plus batteries to be the solution we get to first, rather than be a solution that we get to over time? And our view at the Energy Transition Commission, along with partners that we're looking in countries across the world, we have 10 regional partners, is we actually think increasingly that solar plus battery combination will win first, and we can do the innovations in terms of the tech stack. So you just got, optimizing wind, solar, optimizing batteries. We can innovate on the policies, such as the round-the-clock auction, which I don't think we can underestimate how innovative that was from a government perspective. It was a real innovation story on procuring your power in that way. And also innovations such as the sensing that you talked about. We have the ability now to figure out where to put this stuff faster and in a more, avoiding some of the trade-offs. And so if we can deploy those different innovations that are available to us now, I'm actually quite confident that the solar plus battery end state might be more accessible to more of the world now, and we don't have to go through the LPG route.
Just to say, we all will have to be a little bit patient on this. I think there's no denial to it. Someone talked about government and all. I just want to give you a perspective. Like, if 20 years back, if the governments didn't sign the 20 rupees PPA for solar, we wouldn't have seen a 2 rupees PPA, which we are seeing now, right? So it happens. So to the question right now, first we make renewable energy affordable, available, dependable. Once it is all there, then this is, today we are talking of electric EVs. In future, there'll be induction cookers, and which would be there everywhere, even in the remote places where people will stop even using LPGs and use electricity to cook food. So it will come. We all will have to be a little bit patient with this. That's what I would like to say.
Himal, do you want to come in now as well?
No, I think I just picked up the point that you were saying. I think this solution will be balancing both the load management and demand management. So look, today, what you're saying is it is a little complex, because the load management is become variable. The demand management has to be. So for example, today, you look, it's a thing that we all plan. Look, when is the peak for data centers? When is the peak for running machines that can be, look, today, daytime tariffs are dropping, right? And then we have to balance the economics and availability. So this is the micro level issue, and you have to balance this. The other is long-term planning issue. So for example, today, as a utility, the next big delta for all of us is data centers. So if we are saying to plan for data centers, and tomorrow after 3 years, there is a chip, or maybe there is a new innovation, call it even quantum computing, anything, then the drastic reduction of power consumption, all our assumptions will go off. So this is a challenge that we all have. So at the load side, there has to be, we are integrating all of that at the demand side as well. So all of that is now a system. So to answer your question, this is being done at a very big scale. I think all of us are working. I think the energy stack, the project that we have, already peer-to-peer trading is available today. So you could peer-to-peer in a regulated geography where the regulator allows you, you can trade peer-to-peer. So if I am producing, I can have a peer-to-peer agreement with you. So these are evolution. This is a systemic thing, but I think the things are happening. And as Sharad is saying, it's happening. And I think we have to be a little patient. You will see in the next 2-3 years, dramatically things will change.
Yes, the pace has been accelerating, but needs to accelerate more. Yes. So, Mayor Louisa, with that, do you want to pick up on the question around the engagement with people and the behavioral dimensions?
Yes, and I'd like to thank very much this question. It gives me the chance to speak a little about our project. So for instance, we have launched a voluntary local carbon market where everyone can track their emission savings through a mobile app. Whether it's driving an electric car or making other sustainable choices, these savings are turned into a special currency that can be spent on carbon neutral services, making sustainability rewarding for all. And of course, we must involve everybody, from the youngest children to our senior citizens, and everyone is involved. Every school has its own project with a monitor energy use, and students compete between them in a fun and friendly challenge to see who can save the most in each school. It's a game that they use, and everyone knows, every student knows how much is saving, and then they compete between the schools, and that's a way to involve children. We also created an energy community with all the municipalities that Matosinhos is leading, that is transforming waste into clear energy, which is then distributed to the population at lower cost. So everyone understands the benefit of belonging to the community. So I believe these are only 3 examples about what we are doing in order to involve everybody, since the children at school, the teachers who are part of our strategy, when people get the bill savings part of the money because we are doing some circular economy around the waste and transforming the energy of waste in green energy. And of course, this app where everyone knows if I use a green solution, I would spend the savings in buying some green products. It's a carbon neutral local carbon, volunteer carbon, done by the engineering center that is based on Matosinhos, and I believe that is tackling our goals.
Thank you. I'd like to ask one final question to all of our panelists here, maybe moving from right to left. And I would like to ask, what is the top most priority that you see in terms of what can be done to help accelerate clean energy solutions and development? I know there's lots of things we need to do, but if you had to choose one top action that should be taken away, what is that?
I think in the context of the discussions here today and being in India, for us, we are really excited about clean electrification, lit Raj. There's lots of things in that, but in the context of India, we really do feel that the potential of agri-PV, so putting solar panels on land that is used and continues to be used for productive agriculture, potentially sometimes even giving benefits there, and making that work for farmers, and also making that work to reduce pressure on nature and biodiversity and land use change, for us just feels like a really beautiful win-win-win that can have a massive impact across the world.
Go ahead. Thank you.
The one sentence.
Or 2.
So I would say to enable responsible renewable energy growth, we must combine or bring together science-based siting and landscape planning to make sure that we can capture the benefits of this energy transition, not just the energy benefits or the climate benefits, but also what people and biodiversity can gain from it.
Thank you. Mayor Louisa?
Well, I believe that the most important step a municipality can take is to lead the energy transition with a plan that engages everyone, that turns waste into clean energy and drives local innovation. And to make very clear, especially in countries like mine, that without the leadership of local authorities, we won't achieve the goals, because national governments have not the tools and they have not the direct contact with the population that can change mindset, and that is essential for our future also around clean energy.
Thank you. Ambassador Walter?
Well, the challenge is global and it is very, very complex. So we need more international cooperation. We need more alignment also within countries. We need an enhanced dialogue between local authorities and national authorities within a global context. And as was emphasized from the audience, action is extremely urgent.
Thank you. Ms. Prasad?
So for me, I would think that because our Indian Himalayan region is a very ecologically fragile region, so we need a special emphasis on that. Maybe we can have more innovation with regard to green energy projects, which are more suitable for the Himalayan regions, and also more emphasis on, I would say, decentralized green energy projects, because you cannot, the environment is not conducive for huge projects. So how can we link up small activities with green energy, and that can be completely decentralized, not like a behemoth or somewhere where people can draw power, but each of the activities, maybe it is there for the agriculture, for drawing water, for any kind of economic activity, focus more on decentralized green energy solutions. That would be a breakthrough for the Himalayan region.
Thank you.
While there are a lot of steps which can be taken, I think from the perspective of RE industry, IPPs, I would say immediate attention to augment the grid infrastructure. And when I say grid infrastructure, it should take care of two things. Number one is transmission of electricity from the entire country as one, while we are already one grid, but to remove the bottleneck so that electricity can freely move from one corner to another. And second would be to have inherent storage capability within the grid, so that we can take the entire juice of the RE potential which is there. That would be the problem.
Thank you. Hema?
Yeah, so if I were to take the lens of making sure that this golden era, if I were to call the energy transition, is most inclusive, I would say skilling and capability to address it. The good news is that we are seeing that the transition is jobs aggregative. It's not, till now, it's not destroying so many jobs, but it is creating new jobs. And I think today, as we look at it, we run an institution called Tata Power Skill Development Institute, which are the largest green skilling institute in the country. We next year will train 1 lakh solar technicians, frontline installers. We're looking at entrepreneurs, and a large parts of them would be women, and large parts of them would be coming from affirmative action communities. So this is a chance for us to create an ecosystem that is riding on the way. By the way, the Prime Minister Surya Ghar Yojana itself will create additional, at least conservative estimate, 3 lakh new jobs. Now, we don't have that kind of skill. Today, the good news is this is solar technician installation skill is the shortest route for employment and value creation today in this country. For a 10-day course, you get employed and get a job for 25,000 rupees. Now, that is, we should create this momentum and create it so that, look, this is taken with the positive rubber effects of the society at large. So I would say skilling and capability.
Thank you. And that it really resonates with some of the work that we've been supporting at Bloomberg Philanthropies in partnership with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy in support of the PM Surya Ghar Yojana, where we've supported the training of 10,000 workers on this topic. But I won't get into that now since we're nearly at time. But I want to say that across these, one-line responses, there's a few key themes that emerged for me that I want to wrap up before we close. The first is the importance of leadership and policy and the right policy design and the leadership that we're seeing from governments across all levels on policy design. That's really important. The second is the importance of some of these newer innovative technologies such as decentralized renewable energy and agri-PV and being able to bring sort of renewable energy closer to people. The third is on sort of the grids and being able to strengthen the grids, and the fourth on skilling and building capacity of people. And across all of this, emphasizing what we were sort of discussing at the start is the importance of partnership and collaboration across different sectors, different actors, different perspectives. And that's why dialogues such as this, as the World Sustainable Development Summit, are so important in being able to bring together those different perspectives and initiate the kinds of partnerships that we need. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you to our audience as well and to the organizers at TERI. Thank you.
Thank you to all our panelists and speakers for covering the entire spectrum of issues and challenges at the national level, state level, and at the city level. I think, as Ambassador Walter was mentioning, leaders at the national level do have to operate with the foresight of being re-elected while juggling geopolitical scenarios, and have to also provide energy security. So please, let's all be patient. The change is here. The change is happening, and as Mr. Sharad also mentioned, let's be patient and let's see the change happen on the ground. We also had some good examples of interventions at the city level mentioned by Dr. Anjali and Mr. Himal. The work that they're all doing in Tamil Nadu and Odisha is really appreciable. And for all those who are interested in actually seeing the examples, I request you all to please visit the Heme Connect zone in the Terra zone area. As Ms. Namata Prasad was also mentioning, we have examples of these people having some very good examples of clean energy solutions which are at the ground level, and you can see the change for yourself. So let's have a big round of applause for all our panelists, and I request you all to please come in the front for a group photograph.